Let's try 80. Let's roll. There you go, it did it. So, little trick there, in case you didn't know. You go 80 miles an hour, the windows will close faster. Some of you might be on the fence or on edge or ready to pull the trigger or sign that line, and just in case you had any hesitation, this should help. You are watching New Car Spin, and that is the Lexus UX 250h Luxury. It is based on the Toyota RAV4. This is actually an all-wheel drive platform. It has an electric motor to power the rear wheels and an electric/gas motor combination hybrid setup to power the front wheels. I'm not sure on the power distribution, but it doesn't matter because I can't really notice it. It has a great look on the outside. It looks a little bit more like an upscale version of their older CT. That is the CT 200H. And I'm not sure what that's based on. Probably the Toyota Matrix back in the day. But that is the hybrid, and it is similar to this car, but different. You'll see it's like a hatchback with 4 doors. And unique, but not unique enough as this one is. But this being the UX is obviously all new for Lexus. And I have to say that it looks good. It's got great styling, but it has a few shortcomings. First one, power trunk is always nice, but look how high off the ground that trunk is. It has to be that high off the ground because of the battery system and the electric motor that powers that rear axle. But what you have is a pretty fancy schmancy color combination. I actually like it. The manufacturers do put a lighter color on the interior so that us media folk can have easier time with our cameras getting the interior to show how roomy or unroomy it may be. Back here we have our subwoofer, we have little grocery bag hooks, we have a power outlet, which, you know, I've never used in a trunk. I don't know why they do that. And under here, we do not have a spare tire. We have a fancy collapsing shade that works to befuddle owners. We don't have any tools in here except for a tow hook. And it does fold forward as far as the seats. You just push here and you can fold it from the back. Of course, the seat is in the way. We can lock and close the trunk from here, so let's just go ahead and do that. You have a backup camera as well, you can see there. Close this nicely. We have our rear hatch wiper blade. And we have a really cool feature here with the taillight. This little fin, which obviously helps with aerodynamics. And you don't really notice it unless someone like me points it out. You're welcome. It's kind of windy, so let's go inside. You'll notice before we go in, roof rail. Oh, and keyless entry. If you're wondering, this is what the key looks like. It's basically the same key they use on the newer Lexuses, including the LC. Now inside, it's a little different. We have hard plastic here and there. We have soft touch materials in some places, and in others it just seems to be a weird combination, but it works for me considering this car's price point. We have a bottle holder. There you go. It holds a 20-ounce bottle just fine. Of Dr. Pepper, of course. Diet Dr. Pepper. We have power seats, and the lumbar only goes in and out. It doesn't adjust up and down. And the leather in here is unique. It's soft. It's perforated. It's vented and heated. And then we have this kind of like weird Star Trek alligator. That's what I'm going to call it. Texture, and it's unique. I don't hate it. I don't like it. I don't hate it. I don't like it. I don't know. Can't describe it yet. Inside, power adjusting steering wheel for tilt and telescoping. And I'm always a sucker for that. That's a sign there of high class. Another sign of high class, let me close this door. The way this door sounds when it closes, keep in mind that bottle may affect that. Here we go, let's try this again. Ready? Very solid. Let's put the bottle back. I don't know what these are for. I thought this was fully loaded, but we have a bank of blank switches, which Looks great, doesn't it? That's pretty much like the only downside here. On this side, let me move the fan here. Let's turn that down a little bit actually. We have really cool HVAC controls, kind of like Audi A3-esque. Down here we have another switch of a row of switches. Can't talk today. These are for the heated and cooled passenger seats and the heated and cooled driver seat. And it's obviously just the front passenger seat. And then the heated steering wheel. We have a CD slot, interestingly enough. But no SD slot. But we do have a USB port here, 2 USB ports, and an aux in. You'll see we have a coin tray here, and this cubby thing, actually armrest, flips up for driver and passenger, same access, which is really, really cool. Now, here is our control for the stereo. We are able to move forward and back on the song. This whole thing is fixed. We have a button here to choose radio and a button here to choose different media, and then of course our scroll wheel to raise or lower the volume, and then we have a scroll wheel here to change the tune, which is basically your stereo radio channels. Ironically, it's lettered, as you can see, for the passenger and not for the driver, because it looks upside down on my camera, and I think it makes sense for the passenger but not for the driver. Because it's a hybrid, we have an EV mode, although EV mode is always unavailable because the hybrid battery is low. I see that all the time in this car. And I'll get to this car's Achilles heel in a moment. Let me show you around a little bit more, because actually it's not that bad. Here we have these little tiny things that you turn, and when you do that, you can hear it shutting off that vent. And basically wherever this is moving towards is where that air is going to flow. So it's a pretty nice vent design. What you won't notice is at night, this is actually lit up. There's a little circle and an arrow which points to whether or not this vent is open or closed. So even the vents light up at night. And that's kind of the point I want to get to on this car. Every button, even up here, every button is backlit. And of course this is for our sunroof to slide it open and to tilt it open. But look at these lights. Boom. They're touch receptive, touch capacitor, whatever you want to say. A touch anywhere on them will turn them on or off. Really nice. And what I'll tell you is the price of this car, as this one is $42,000. Now, it can sound pretty pricey, but for what you're getting, it only gets cheaper than that. So this is your worst case scenario. If we look here at the window sticker, we have a 2-liter engine, not turbocharged, 181 horsepower, which is interesting because that's just about right where the Mazda Miata is. The problem here is it says you can get 41 in the city and 38 on the highway for fuel economy, but I've been getting 31.6. And I've been getting that because I've had to drive this thing pretty hard, mainly because this thing weighs 3,605 pounds. And a Mazda Miata weighs about 2,300 pounds, and they have the same amount of power. So I'm going to drive this thing with a lead foot because it's about 1,200 pounds heavier, mainly because of the hybrid system up front and in the back. So it's carrying a lot more weight, and obviously it has a rear seat and hatch. Not exactly the same car, but what I want to tell you is the biggest problem I have in here is this fuel gauge. That fuel gauge, by the way, I filled it up just before getting here with $5 worth of fuel, and I got a quarter tank out of it. Meaning $10 gets you half a tank, and $20 gets you a full tank. And that's in Texas, where the price is like $2.20 and change. The problem is, though, you drive along, and your trip computer here, shows you some useful or useless information, depending on what you want. But then all of a sudden it says low fuel. And the problem I've had is the low fuel warning has come on, and it's shown me a 15-mile range as soon as that hits low. And that's because this fuel tank is only 10.2 gallons. So I've had this car for 7 days, and I've been to the gas station 5 times. Now, granted, I drove to Austin from Dallas, and I drove back to Dallas, but range aside, the problem here is a car that's supposed to be as fuel efficient or more fuel efficient than that has resulted in me going to the gas station almost every day. And so I've been experimenting with like $5, $10, $5, $10 because I had to check, is that right? Is it really telling me at 15 miles that I need to fill up? Because that's just not enough warning. Most cars are 40 or 50 miles advance warning. But for 15, even in the city, like you go downtown or you're stuck here, it's like, I have to finish where I'm going, and then I have to go somewhere else, and then maybe I'll get fuel. So it's actually turned out to be more of an inconvenience than anything else. The one thing I wish is that Toyota would, or Lexus, would give me a warning at 30 miles. I don't care exactly how much fuel is in here, but when it says 30 miles of range, I want the warning. I don't want 15 miles, because 30, I can kind of plan a little bit better than that. 15, the average commute this day for everybody, I think, is 40 miles. So don't quote me on that, but it's just not enough, especially in a car made for commuting, right? Yeah, you're going to agree there. But you'll see this fancy steering wheel. We have another downside here. There is no upgraded stereo in this UX. So the UX 250h Luxury doesn't have a Mark Levinson sound system, and it desperately needs it. So beyond that, this is a great car. I've been in here for 7 days, and this thing has been my office. I've been on the phone in here for a long time, and you can see that the dash is kind of angled towards the driver, and it's very convenient, and there's a lot of activity here you can do that is tied in with the screen. You basically have not a touch screen, but you have 1, 2, 3, 4 levels of action in this vehicle, and everything's kind of been segmented and compartmentalized in a pretty much logical manner. If I press menu down here, what I get is the menu up there, and this surprisingly actually has Climate Concierge, which allows the vehicle to automatically adjust the climate within the vehicle. And it's more than just auto. It actually impacts the ability to have air filtration and a bunch of other things. If I go into our options, you'll see we have a filtration setting, we have eco settings, and all that other stuff. It's basically a very complex system, but very easy to use. And I do like it in here. I do like it a lot. This has been a nice office. You'll see the textures here this is not leather. This is a weird kind of like, so it looks like fiber, but it's not fiber. I like it. And the color in here is pleasing. It's sort of baseball glove. I like it. Let's see what else we have. Well, auto headlights, auto high beams with this button here, auto wipers and rear wiper. We have radar cruise and lane keeping. We have blind spot monitoring, which is identified right there, BSM. And we have drive modes, sport, which shows me a rev range, which is kind of useless because this is a CVT automatic transmission, meaning there's no real gear change, and it also has the hybrid power, so the electric motor and the gas motor work together, or electric motors. There's two of them, one in front and one in the back. Essentially, this car has been a decent commuter car. The only problem has been the range. With the 10.2 mile tank, I haven't really been able to go a week without having to fill up. I haven't been going a day, basically, having to visit the gas station. Traction control off, which I don't need. Brightness display, which is nice to have as buttons over here rather than having to find something. This is actually backlit as well. Very nice. And auto up and down. Interestingly, the windows, listen to this window and pay attention to how it rolls down. Oops. It's like a multi-step motor, so it speeds up and then it slows down and seals. Now it's not, it is. It's dual layer glass too, which is really nice to have. Let's see if I can focus in on that for you. It's 2 layers of glass sandwiched together, which helps reduce noise. You'll notice it goes up and softly closes. Now on the freeway, like 60 miles an hour, it doesn't soft close, it just goes right up in. So I don't know what speed that is, but you'll notice on the freeway when you roll that window up, it goes thunk. So different kind of engineering here on this car. They've really thought out a lot of things, which is why this car is so nice. I actually do like this car. Personally, it's a little too small for me, being 6 feet tall and 260 pounds-ish. but the feel in here is decent. So what I'm going to do is put my seatbelt on, and we are going to go around the block, because what I want to show you is just what it's like. So we will put it in drive. We have an electronic parking brake, and we have electronic brake hold. Electronic parking brake is actually right there. So you push in to activate and pull it to release, which is the way it should be in all cars with electronic parking brake. I'm going to turn this down again. That way you can hear me and not the HVAC. Okay, even though the engine is off, we are on. And there's really nothing to show me that it's on other than ready, I guess? I don't know. But we'll go ahead and go up here and make a right. So the hybrid system just kind of like self-charges. There's no plug-in aspect to this. And the engine handles all of the charging, so you don't have to, well, you actually cannot park in an electric vehicle parking space because there's nowhere to plug it in. This is not a plug-in, which is probably another problem with this car. You know, you have a little city car like this, and all they had to do is engineer a plug so that you can kind of like take advantage of those city schemes where they have electric vehicle parking in like prime spots. So even with this car you can't, but in something like an Audi Q3, or sorry, Audi A3 e-tron, you could. It's kind of a downside here that it's not a plug-in. All right, let this car go by. Now this is not the fastest car. It isn't as sporty as it looks. And that's because it is 1,200 pounds heavier than a Mazda Miata, but it has the same power basically as a Mazda Miata. It just won't move fast enough. 0 to 60 is up around 9 seconds. And I think that is okay in a city car. It's just that when you put it in sport mode, it's still silent. There's no real boost coming from the electric motors. And there's no extra sound being even pumped into the cabin, which I wish they did, Lexus. If I have a UX 250H Luxury or even an F Sport, I really want like a sport mode to be sporty sounding, at least, to make me feel like this is a faster car, because it's really missing something. Let's see what we got up here. More people coming. But that's kind of what a hybrid does, is it desensitizes you to the driving experience. But in the Lexus, what you actually get is Lexus ride quality. It's quiet in here. You know, you've noticed the dual glazed windows. You have a pretty okay stereo. But when you're driving along, you'll pretty much get a Lexus ride out of it. So the road noise is minimal, as much as it can be in an economy/commuter car. And the ride quality is great. That drum, though, out of the engine, that nasty sound, I wish they engineered like a sports sound through the stereo. Some people are haters on that sporty sound, but I think it would really improve this vehicle a lot, regardless of whether or not it's enough sport. Being that it's all-wheel drive and I don't know the torque distribution between the front and rear axles, I will tell you that it doesn't feel like all-wheel drive. There's definitely some torque steer. I wouldn't necessarily say torque steer, I'd say torque weight. It feels like the steering gets a lot heavier, not only in sport mode, but when you put your foot down, it just feels harder to control. If I put it back into comfort mode, then obviously this is how it is when you start up. Also, when you start the car, if you leave the lane turning, lane LTA steering assist thing, if you leave that on, it stays on when you get back in the car. Let's go on the freeway. I want to show you the window thing. Kind of a different review today. If you're new here, please subscribe. I have a lot of videos on new cars. That's what I do. That's why I'm called New Car Spin, if you didn't know. These are press vehicles. These are not cars that friends let me borrow or anything like that, because my friends don't have new cars. Basically, I'm supplied cars by dealers and manufacturers, and I do videos like this for you. Try not to bore you with stats. I try and let you know what the experience is like, because I think some of you might be on the fence or on edge or ready to pull the trigger or sign that line, and just in case you had any hesitation, this should help. Alright, so let's just go for it. Floored. In normal mode. Let's go to sport. No difference really. Alright, so let's roll the window down. Let's roll it up. Oh, okay, so 74 didn't do it. Let's try 80. Let's roll. There you go, it did it. So, little trick there, in case you didn't know. You go 80 miles an hour, the windows will close faster on auto up. It's kind of interesting. It's not the fastest car, and people don't necessarily get out of the way of a fast Lexus. But I'm getting off here. What happens though is, I'm gonna get off here. I've got vibrating steering wheel for when I'm over the lane or trying to like encroach on another lane. It won't necessarily steer me, but it tries to steer me to keep me centered to the lane. It won't steer me to correct me in the lane. This is Texas. 67 and a 45, and I'm being passed by an SUV. Alright, we're going to make a U-turn over here. There's one of these fun U-turns. We're going to see what the performance is like on cornering. We do not have performance tires on here. This is obviously a low rolling resistance, fuel economy style setup with the tires. But the ride, believe it or not, based on what you see on the camera, the ride is exceptional. This is a Lexus for sure. It's got all this weight, and it feels very balanced and smooth over these city roads and this concrete. We go around this corner. A lot of wheels howling. It's fine. I'm used to the howling. Go for it. Floored. See, not really a mover here, which is where I wouldn't mind extra noise piped in. And of course, I can't show you anything with the stereo because YouTube would copyright the music, and I don't want to get a flag because I try to monetize my videos, and this is how I make a living these days, so I appreciate your support. Wink, wink. Still not a bad car. I mean, if you're just driving around in the city and you don't need to commute on a freeway, or basically if you do commute, it's never an open road like this. This is a wet dream for a lot of you commuters, but just understand that if there ever was a situation where you had to commute, this car is decent. Great ride, nice cockpit layout here, very convenient. The hybrid system is supposed to... Bless me. Oh, never sneezed on a review before. That's a first. It's just one of those, nice cars to have, but without looking like a boy racer kind of thing. So keep that in mind if you're on the fence here. Let's go ahead and get back on the freeway. There is a bit of a blind spot right here on the B pillar. And I can't see much. That's all I see when I look left. So you do have to depend on the blind spot monitoring. And that's it. Decent car, decent price. $42,000 for a loaded baby Lexus, basically. It's more, not even a baby, this is kind of like a flea. The small size actually makes it very convenient to dart in and out of lanes. And I've tested that out. It's not as fun as a GTI, but you do have all-wheel drive, which a GTI doesn't even have. And I think if you're an older person who wants a decent car for commuting in a budget, I mean, this is not a big car, but cars these days have been getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Look at the BMW 3 Series. It's even bigger on the price tag, too. So it's hard now to find a decent commuter car, unless you go for a base Honda Civic, which I drove. That was like $22,000 and very nice. But if you're an adult who's been working for 15 years, you want to kind of step it up. or if you're basically single and like to have fun, you'd also want to step it up. We're going to get off here, actually. We're going to call this a review. I hope I showed you everything you need to see. Hybrid works like this. The car has a great feel to it. The seats are supportive. Not necessarily the best adjustment capabilities, but we still are in a luxury car, and I can feel it and I can sense that, and can't necessarily hear performance nor feel it, but I don't think that's a problem for most of you. If you can afford one of these, you probably have another car in the garage too. Maybe a Miata, which would be fun to do. Have a Miata and then one of these. All right. Well, my battery on my phone's low, and I gotta get home. So thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao.